Hello and welcome to the Unleash podcast. Unleash your potential, make your impact. On the show, we meet with leaders in their industry on leadership challenges and strategies, sometimes in the hiring process. And we also learn from professionals who are making their impact, always with the goal of inspiring others. My name is Amy Miller, and joining us on the show today is Dorien Jaeger. Dorien is an educator with over 25 years experience teaching in the New York City public school system. And Dorien is also founder and creator of Mindfully Me, a yoga and wellness program for students age K through 6. Dorien, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy, for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Me too. And yes, I'm excited to dive in and learn more about what you're doing with your program. I am genuinely so interested and got increasingly excited as I was reading about your program, because a lot of the concepts that you incorporate, awareness, mindfulness, effective communication, these are key and things that I often talk about as well. And I was wondering, with your background in education, because it's been a long time since I was that school age, of course, are these concepts and mindfulness starting to become more of a thing, that is taught or introduced in the classroom, or are these concepts still lacking a bit from the public school system?
Well, it's interesting that you ask that, because when I was still in the public school system, which was just 3 years ago, there wasn't much of this going on. Prior to me getting certified and trained in 2017, there weren't really any full-time mindfulness teachers in the New York City schools. So I went on my own and got trained and certified because I was practicing this in my own personal life. And I could see how much this affected my joy, my happiness. And so I decided to go ahead privately and just get trained and certified. And then I approached my principal about it, and she was very open to it. And she actually was the first principal to allow somebody to do this full time in a New York City elementary school. So once that took place, the chancellor's office was very interested in coming to see that. And so they came and observed my class, and they were very taken by it. And since then, in the last 7 years, they actually have a department in the New York City schools that teaches teachers how to teach mindfulness and yoga to children. So it's really blowing up now.
That is amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm very removed from kids that age right now, just with where I am in my life. I don't have that kind of interaction. So I didn't know that. But I think I do yoga myself, and a lot of the mindful practices that you teach in your program are so important just in lifelong skills. And a lot of adults are missing, having challenges with communication, with identifying what it is they truly want. And so I think that's awesome that this is something that schools are implementing. And it sounds like you were instrumental in starting that. That's amazing.
Well, it's funny because I don't like to make it such a big deal, but I do feel like I had a part in pioneering this because I had the accessibility, being that I was an elementary school teacher for 30 years. And at that time, it was about 23 years. I had taught in the classroom. I had very diverse populations that I worked with. You know, many children were English as a second language children. So I decided that if I could use literacy as part of my mindfulness program, which was also something that I came up with being a teacher that was different than most yoga teachers.
Right.
I incorporated literacy because I felt like that would also introduce vocabulary, discussions, different concepts and ideas. So I would try to match my books to the premise of the lesson that day. So if I was teaching compassion, I would find a children's book that the theme was compassion. And it really worked well to help kids, increase their vocabulary, and also to open up like open-ended discussions that would not happen in other classes throughout the day.
That sounds very creative how you implemented that, and also improving vocabulary and discussions, because as adults we have challenges with discussions. There are so many people that you could help with what you're doing. But I also think that helping with the vocabulary and discussions can really help in building confidence in these kids. Are you finding that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because when I would show up in the classroom, it was a once a week class. The kids would say, "Oh, Miss Jaeger, we're so happy you're here because it's basically the only time of our week that we get to express ourselves and talk."
Wow.
And they would say this to me. I would be
Oh my
so touched
goodness.
and
Yeah.
talk about, how they felt. Because
Hmm.
when they're studying reading and writing and math, it has nothing to do with their thoughts or their emotions. And you're right,
Hmm.
it doesn't help. I mean, of course, if you do well on a math test, it's going to help your self esteem, but not
Yeah.
as much as when you feel a certain innate power that you can feel from learning about your own self awareness.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I was going to ask about, because I'm in reading about your program. You mentioned self awareness. I talk a lot about self awareness because I think it's a real game changer. Because the better you understand yourself, the better you can give yourself what it is you need. And in education, it's important to pay attention to, and because later it's going to lead into career direction. This feels good. I like this. I don't. This does not feel good. Go another way. And I wanted to ask you about how you teach, some of the ways that you teach kids self awareness. And it sounds like in understanding their emotions a bit. Am I on the right track, or what are some ways
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. So the way I begin every class is called a check-in. So at the beginning of the class, when the students come in, I say, okay, today we're going to check in with ourselves. So if you had a great day, thumbs up. If your day was mediocre, sideways. If your day was a down kind of day and you struggled a little bit, thumbs down. So
Mm-hmm.
each child will do that. And then I will go around the room and ask who wants to share why they felt that way about their day. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting, they really start to open up about particular things that happened that day. And then we talk about, okay, well, how did you react to that happening? And how could you have reacted differently? Or how might you react the next time? And we discuss the feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
the most important thing that I try to teach them is being present in this moment, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the basis of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say, well, okay, so earlier in the day, you had a problem on the playground. And how did you feel at that moment? But how do we learn to move on from that? How
Mm-hmm.
do we learn from that experience? And how do we get into this moment and decide how can we handle that differently? How can we move on from it? And how can we let it go? Because it doesn't make any sense to hang out in that anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
that the upsetting feelings, the anger. And we talk a lot about that kind of stuff. And it's really amazing how they can come up with ways to react differently, not be so impulsive. You know,
That's very, very strong and so important. So you are helping them to improve their self-awareness by identifying their emotions, which is challenging to do. It's something that I do myself, and in career coaching, I encourage clients and college students to do that as well, to identify the emotion. But then you're taking it deeper with implementing curiosity, helping kids to get curious not only about how they're feeling, but why they're feeling that way, and then what they can do about it. I noticed that in your program, you talk a lot about curiosity. I wanted to ask about some other ways that you implement or teach curiosity and how it helps kids as a useful skill.
well, mindfulness definitely promotes curiosity because I find that when we're talking about being present in the moment, when we're talking about how we're noticing things, and then a big part of it is not being judgmental. So when I'm teaching about these type of subjects in these areas, I find that the kids ask a lot of questions. And so I find that the more we talk about mindfulness and the more activities we do, it's creating a sense of wonder, and it's creating more, they're seeking answers to many questions that I think would not be brought up otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So example, if I'm doing an activity on, let's say we do mindful communication, this is a simple activity that I do at the beginning of most of my classes. So I'll have two people partner up, 2 kids. One will be the speaker, one will be the listener. The speaker will ask them a question that they're curious about that person. It could be somebody they just met, or it could be somebody they know, but they're asking something new that they don't know about that person. So then they have to listen actively for 1 minute without saying a word.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's so
I set a
good.
timer,
Wow.
set the 1
Awesome.
minute timer,
Okay.
and I will speak. And it's tough for a kid to continue to speak for 60 seconds,
Okay.
but I'm egging them on, keep going, keep going. And then they switch. The other person becomes the speaker and the other person becomes the listener. And after the 2 minutes, we discuss, what did you learn about this person? And more importantly, we discuss, how did it feel to be the listener? How did it feel to be the speaker? And what do you prefer? Do you prefer speaking more? Do you prefer listening? And it creates a whole sense of wonder about ourselves, about others. And we also learn a lot about each other, where otherwise they basically stick with their own people that they know, just like adults do. When you enter a room, the majority of the time you're going to connect with the people that you know.
Right.
So this creates like an openness. Mindfulness creates an openness to get to know other people and to start to have a sense of wonder and questioning and answers.
Curiosity and wonder. I think wonder is a really strong word, because one thing that I notice holds a lot of us back in goals or overcoming challenges in communication is worry. So I like to say, choose wonder over worry. And I love this exercise that you just shared, because this is also teaching kids not only self-awareness but social awareness, because they're learning how to understand how the other person feels. And then when they're the talker, the communicator, how it feels to be heard, and then they can put themselves in the other person's shoes. I think that's really great, because I see a lot of challenges with communication where adults are not active listening, sometimes chomping at the bit to, and we all do that sometimes because maybe we're excited about the conversation. We want to share how we relate to it, but sometimes it can result in a lack of connection, because the one person didn't get to feel understood, and then you're not really connecting.
And I talked to them about that. I talked to them about how this could create deeper friendships with people. And,
Yes.
and how when you show empathy and compassion by listening to others, you will be well liked.
Yes.
Kids worry a lot about, they don't feel well liked and they feel left out and they're not part of the clique or the group. And I tell them, what qualities would you look for in a person that you would want as a friend? And a big part of that is somebody who shows that they care.
Right.
And by being an active listener, it's a very big, important way to show that you not only care, but you're also present in the moment, which is the main basis of mindfulness. And also that you're not judging, because that's another big deal that I try to teach the kids, is that when people are sharing their feelings and are sharing their stories, we do not want to judge them. And that's a big thing, because kids tend to, be critical. Oh, I don't like those pants, and I didn't like that T-shirt that you had on. So, I try to teach them
Right.
to be kind.
Okay.
Kindness is part of it.
I was going to ask, and maybe that's your answer, but maybe there's a little more that you have to offer there, because we do this as adults too. How do you not judge?
Okay, well, part of that is based on, how would you feel?
Okay.
With children especially, you go back to, everything's about them, right? So,
Yeah.
most of the time when they're young, especially, they're mostly thinking of themselves.
Yeah.
So I go through scenarios. There's an activity that I do that's called kind wishes. And I think you'll appreciate this. So what happens is, each person sits down and I say, okay, let's imagine somebody comes into the room that you really like and really appreciate. And we're going to send them kind wishes. So they repeat after me. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be full of joy. And then we talk about, how does that feel when you say that to somebody that you really like? And they say, oh, it feels so good. It's very easy to say those kind wishes to people that you like. The next scenario is somebody walks in the room that you find annoying. This could
Okay.
be your little brother or sister, your parent at a certain time of the day. And we are going to send them those same wishes.
Okay.
So we are going to say, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be full of joy. How does that feel? And they will say, ooh, that was hard to say. Or, I've never said anything like that to somebody who's annoying to me. So it's funny because they're very honest. So then I would say, well, how do you think that would change your relationship with this particular person? And they come up with these great answers. Like, I think maybe that they would be nicer to me. Maybe, they would see that I'm being nicer, so they would be less annoying. And,
Right.
maybe it gives me the chance to see them in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the final part of the activity is to wish yourself happiness and health and joy, which they're not used to doing either.
Right.
And so that's showing kindness to themselves. So
And
all of that,
self-compassion. Yeah.
yes.
That is so key. And I wanted to ask about a little bit more about effective communication, because we were talking about this is such a challenge in so many areas. It's a challenge in the workplace. Sometimes we say part of what we mean, part of what we want. Sometimes we don't say what we want or what we're working toward at all as an adult. I think for fear that, that the truth won't get us what we want, or maybe we think that someone is interpreting, what we mean. And a lot of times I think that kids can be better communicators than adults because kids don't have all of that fear just yet. Kids tend to say, this is what I want, this isn't fair, this is what I mean. And so I think in some ways adults can learn from kids, but I'm curious what some of the challenges you see with kids are when it comes to effective communication.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of challenges I see. One could be attention span, which is a big thing with children. So part of that is where I have to teach them focusing and concentration activities, which I actually wanted to tell you that I do start the class with a chime.
Okay.
And I have them listening to the chime and they raise their hand when they stop hearing the chime. And then I start with a strategy that would work with adults as well. The teachers in my school love this. So what I do is I put my fingers together and I teach them this tapping concentration exercise. So
Okay.
they tap thumb to pointer, thumb to middle finger, thumb to ring finger, and then thumb to pinky. And they say, I'm here right now. And then
Okay.
they take a big mindful breath in and out. I'm here right now. And we start with that, 3 of those. And that is something that I teach them to do if they're feeling angry, if they're feeling distracted, if they're, about to take a test, if they're upset with their brother or sister or parent. It brings them back to the moment and it gives them that breathing, which helps them to be calm and not be so reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of the challenge is with attention deficit, they're always, rushing and ready to like spew out whatever's on their mind because they don't have the calm or attention to think about it and be less impulsive. So
Okay.
part of the mindfulness stuff is teaching them not to react so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I do a number of different strategies like that, and that helps them.
And okay, so mindfulness, effective communication. We talked about curiosity. You
Active listening.
active listening. You mentioned flexibility of the body and the mind. I'm a yogi too. I did my yoga today, so flexibility of the body important, of course. Share with me what you mean when you say flexibility of the mind, and how is this a useful skill that can help kids?
Okay. So I think that it makes them more flexible when they start to think about, like, I have them doing different activities where they're observing things and they're observing their thoughts and their emotions and they're not immediately reacting to them. So
Okay.
I'm trying to teach them that they can adapt to certain situations by using mindfulness. And what I mean by adapting to different situations is let's say they have to go on a stage and they're about to do a show. And instead of being terrified and full of anxiety, what can we do to help ourselves with that? Well, number one, we can be very prepared, which is always great, right?
Yes.
Preparation. I try to teach them that when it comes to tests as well. There's no need for the anxiety. Let's just study a little bit every day, right? So if we do, and it always goes, a lot of it goes back to breathing, because a lot of the different breathing techniques I teach them to breathe in ways that can enhance their energy, and I teach them to breathe in ways where it can calm down their energy. So I think
Okay.
managing their emotions through breathing and through different like strategies, it helps them to be flexible in different situations and not tend to rush into these anxious, feelings.
So important. And I'm curious if, well, I'm sure that you do, but I would love to hear a little bit of maybe some specific examples on how you incorporate these, I like to call them success habits or practices into your own life that you're teaching the kids.
Well, that's funny because I use them all the time.
Yeah, that's so
Well,
good.
I
Yeah.
I do also try to teach meditation to the kids, but because of their ages, it has to be very limited. When I was doing the fifth grade got up to 5 minutes of meditation, which was pretty good considering,
That's amazing. Yeah.
they're very antsy. But
Uh
even
huh.
the kindergartners, I had the kindergartners doing like 1 or 2 minutes of meditation.
That's fantastic. Oh my goodness.
And they would give me the responses when I asked them, how did you use this in your life? Like, not just in class right now. They
Uh
would
huh.
say, oh, Miss Jaeger, when I had a fight with my brother last night, I decided I'm not going to yell. I'm going to go upstairs to my room
Amazing.
and I'm going to meditate.
That's so
And
good.
I did that. I came back down. I was more calm. I was able to deal with them. And they
Hmm.
also told me that they would do yoga sometimes in the morning before a test. So,
Wow.
so what I do is I wake up every morning and first thing I do is I meditate. I set the timer and I
Okay.
try for 10 minutes at least.
Okay.
And
And because I think that we can have different interpretations of meditation. For your meditation, are you working to just not think about anything and completely keep your mind as clear as possible? Or are you thinking and feeling things and emotions that you would like to feel?
I'm trying to focus on my breathing.
Okay.
And when I'm focusing on my breathing, I'm letting go of all the distractions that I normally would wake up with feeling overwhelmed like everybody else does first thing in the morning.
Yeah. With
What
everything that you
I
have to
do,
do
right,
and
what's on my agenda. But
yeah.
my teacher, who I go to, tells us that we have to stop first thing in the morning and say, I'm not going down this road today. It's not going to take, me over at this point. So
Hmm.
that's go into your breathing. And of course, thoughts will come in, but we are taught in my classes to let them float by as
Okay.
clouds would float by. And then after my 10 minutes, I know it's funny, but it's a good analogy. And then
Yeah.
after
No, I
10
was
minutes,
laughing because it's so hard. I try to do the same thing, but not for 10 minutes. And I'm always thinking thoughts, but I try to focus on my breath, and then I start to think about and envision creative visualization, I call it. But I was laughing because I have a hard time not, with so many thoughts that come in. But go ahead.
so then after the 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes I listen to YouTube videos about being present, about what's most important is that you feel good.
Yes.
And focus on the thoughts and the things that make you feel good, and then you carry on with your day in that mindset, and therefore you're bringing that energy to everyone else throughout your day.
Yes.
And I find that it really works when you start your day like that. And I felt like when I was still teaching full time that I was like a walking bubble of cheer, you know, and everybody would
You
want to.
are. You are. Every time I see you, I feel that energy. You are a
Oh, thank
walking
you.
bubble of cheer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I try, and I feel like, the mindfulness and the meditation has brought that to me for the last, I'd say, like, I've been studying meditation for about 12 years now, and
Okay.
I've been reading about it for about 20 years. But me
Okay.
actually taking the classes every week, and being in the group and
Mm-hmm.
sharing, it really has changed me as a person. And I think that is what, pushed me to bring this to children, because I was like, how can I feel all this joy and all this knowledge and not want to share it with people at the beginning of their lives, which I feel like
Yes.
could change the whole trajectory of their life.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
all the people that they go on to impact, and then even their families at home. And that's another thing I wanted to ask you about. How can parents, or maybe the kids would be teaching the parents after working with you, but
Yeah.
what are some things that parents can do to help their kids practice mindfulness and effective communication and self awareness at home?
Okay. Well, first of all, the main thing is, and I feel like this, sorry, as a teacher, was to lead by example.
Okay.
Because, I even tell the parents, like, that are the parents of the kids in my class, that if you're an anxious parent, you
Yep.
know, all day long with
Yeah.
all this anxiety that you're displaying in front of your children, it doesn't matter how many classes they come to with me, it's not going to be that effective,
Mm-hmm.
because, they're going home to these parents that are, we have to get in the car, hurry up, we have to get to soccer, quick, I have to stop it, and they all share that with me. The kids share that with me. Oh, that sounds like my mom, so it's very funny how
That's
they tell me.
hilarious.
Isn't that funny? So I think
Yes.
start start in small moments would be my advice to a parent. Like,
Okay.
gradually become more aware of your behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
try to stop that when you're around your children. And another important thing I think for parents is to try to be present with your kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I find that that really gives them the sense of trust and support. Because I can tell they know I really care about them because I listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen parents that are like, okay, just get in the car. Like,
Yeah.
they're rushing them away and they're pushing them onto their piano lesson and, onto the soccer field. And they're just not taking the time
Yeah.
to listen to what they feel.
Yep.
And sometimes when I see the parents who have observed some of my classes, they're in awe because there are things that they didn't even know about their own children.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it
It-
really hits hard, with me. And I think with some of them too, they seem to want to become more empathetic as they see
mhm.
how they're opening up in my class.
That is really, really beautiful. And they may not realize, I think often we don't realize, but I'm very cognizant of this lately and increasingly as time goes by, because I used to be someone that would rush, rush, rush because my goals were the most important thing, no time for anybody. And when you do that, you don't feel good when you don't give somebody time. And then what happens is sometimes we think that we're saving time in rushing or in not fully listening to somebody or giving them a moment to visit or whatever. We feel bad later. And so then we have a distracted focus, which is slowing us down, with the rest of our day to day. So I really try to make a conscious effort. Now it's easy. I've gotten much more. I wouldn't describe myself as laid back still, but
Well, you seem like
definitely
you
I
are.
get. Oh, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I've made a conscious effort to, and now to give people time, and to stop and visit with somebody, because this is somebody that cares about me, that wants to connect. And then in doing that, I'm going to feel better and happier and richer, and then I'm going to carry that forth. So you're teaching parents that, which you're teaching the kids and the parents. That is really, really empowering, and you must feel must be very rewarding, the work
It
that you're
is.
doing.
It really is. And one more thing I wanted to add to you is that I try to teach the parents to encourage, like, open dialogue, but without judgment.
Okay.
Parents tend to be, hard on the children and can be judgmental if they didn't do well on a test, or,
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't do things exactly the way the parents expected. So I try to teach the parents that, not being so judgmental will teach the kids not to be, so judgmental. So,
Yeah. And to be more open with our parents about their wants, their needs, their emotions, because sometimes, a lot of times, we hold back how we're feeling because we don't want to be judged. So,
exactly.
what is the best way for us to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more about your program?
Well, I have an Instagram. That's really the best way to do it.
Okay.
It's called Mindfully Me by Dorien, Dorien, which is a
Hmm.
little different.
Okay.
And I can be messaged there. At this point, I don't have a website because I'm busy teaching at private schools. I do after school classes.
Uh-huh.
I also teach classes privately, for people if they want their children, to receive private mindfulness yoga
Hmm.
classes. And I do classes in Central Park as well.
Oh,
So
awesome.
once the weather gets nice, I conduct
Yeah,
classes outside, which is really fun.
that
And
is really fun.
yeah, that's the best way. And, Dorien Jaeger at Gmail is always a possibility.
Okay. Okay, great. I will link both of those in the
Yeah.
description in case anybody wants to reach out to you. I love the work that you're doing and I know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking time to share.
Oh, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I have loved the conversation and selfishly I appreciate your what did you say? Bubble of sun. What did you call yours?
I don't know, bubble of joy or
Bubble of
energy.
joy. Yes, I will soak it up. So
Oh, thank you so much, Amy.
absolutely. Thank you for being here. And also thank you for our listeners. Thank you to our listeners. Appreciate you guys as well. If you are interested in more success tips and mindfulness habits, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is Amy Lee Miller Coaching. And you can also check out my book if you like. It is Where's My Mustard? How to Let Go, Attract, and Achieve a Quest to Self-Empowerment. We will see you soon. And until next time, stay curious.